Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is a very wet day in Silver Spring. My name is Katie Riley. I am a reference and outreach librarian and will be helping host this webinar today. This is part of the library's Publishing at NOAA series. Today's talk is on using the NOAA IR as a research tool, or how I learned to stop aimlessly searching and love the IR. And with that, I'm going to give you a few logistics. We will be taking questions, but I will be answering them on the back end in chat because we have a limited time today. And Trevor Riley, who is our presenter, is going to be walking through the IR. And if there are any questions that I can't answer, we will answer those offline after the event. So if you are having any issues hearing or seeing the screen, I suggest trying to log out and log back in. That solves most problems. And with that, this is being recorded. So if you miss it or have to step away for some reason, or would like to pass this on to a colleague, we will have this recorded and up on the library's YouTube channel after the event. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor Riley.
All right, thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. So yes, my name is Trevor Riley, and I am the head of public services here at NOAA Central Library. So as part of the ongoing publication series, like Katie said, we will be reviewing the IR as a research tool, research database. And the goal of today's seminar will be to review what type of material you're going to find in the IR and how the IR is organized. So IR stands for Institutional Repository, so you hear me throwing that around. And we'll be focusing on how to use the facets in searching and browsing, basic and advanced searching. And then we'll take a look at how both documents and data are linked. And finally, we'll take a look at some of the added functionalities, such as exporting citations. So there's some good functionalities in here that'll be very helpful for you as you pull resources out. Like Katie said, she'll be answering questions in the box, but if there's anything else, we will follow up with you. So a brief history of the Institutional Repository. In 2013, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, OSTP, released a memorandum directing federal agencies with more than $100 million in R&D expenditures to develop plans to make results of federally funded research freely available to the public. So something we absolutely love as librarians. And in 2015, NOAA released its PAR policy, PARR, it's public access to research results. And that's a plan which was prepared by the Research Council. As part of the PAR plan, the NOAA Central Library was tasked with standing up and managing the institutional repository. And in 2017, the library launched the Institutional Repository. I believe that was in January of 17. And it's grown exponentially since then due to the really hard work of the IR team. And we're really getting to a point where it can be used as a robust research tool. So that's what we'll be taking a look at today. So as a researcher or as a NOAA employee, what can you expect to find in the IR? In general, you're going to find that the IR contains two main types of material, broken down into NOAA authored publications and NOAA funded publications. And they can cross over a little bit, but so let's break this down. A NOAA funded publication is any article, report, etc., that was a result of work done as a result of funding provided by NOAA. And NOAA publications are pretty straightforward. They almost always consist of a peer-reviewed journal article. And NOAA authored publications is a type of publication that only has to have a single NOAA author to be considered NOAA authored. This extends beyond federal employees to contractors and cooperative employees. And in the sense, they're considered a NOAA author in that sense. So NOAA authored publications can be any of our NOAA publications: tech memos, tech reports, atlases, professional papers, and there's a number of other non-series NOAA publications. So anything that we put out as NOAA But it also includes peer-reviewed journal articles. A number of our scientists do publish in peer-reviewed journals, and the article only needs to have one NOAA employee listed as an author for the PAR policy to be set in place. So it could have 40 authors if one of those authors is a NOAA employee or a contractor, cooperative employee. It's going to be considered a NOAA authored publication. Two more things I want to note before we move on to the IR and searching and collections. The IR is focused on journal articles that were published after October 1st of 2015. That's not to say that there aren't journal articles in there before that, but it was really focused on that point in time. There had to be a kind of a cutoff, or else it would just be a monumental backlog. So really 2015 is where you're going to start seeing that. October 1st, 2015, you're going to start seeing those journal articles. For the NOAA publications, like tech memos and tech reports, the library has actually been undertaking a large digitization project over the last few years. And we're making many of the series available through the IR. So you'll find that some of the series that we have, they go back to the early 70s, 1970, you'll see some of these in here when NOAA was established. So that's just a little bit of a background, what you're going to find in the IR. So let's take a look. This is the main repository page, and we're going to actually start off by heading into the collections here. So I'm going to click on this tab, and if you are at home, which I imagine most of you are, you can follow along. But when material is submitted to the IR, it's assigned as part of a collection. Material is published by authors from that is published by multiple line office authors, can be found in multiple collections. So a paper could be assigned both a Nymphs and an OAR collection, so you could find it in both if it has an author from both line offices. There's also some thematic collections, and those are going to cover cross-cutting programs that go across multiple line offices. And so you can see that there are ones in, such as Sea Grant, NEPA, and the Weather Act. So those are our collections there. And this, over time, will most likely grow, but at this point, these are the collections we have here. All right, so let's take a look at one of these collections first. I'm going to jump into National Marine Fisheries Service, the Nymphs collection here. So as you can see, the Nymphs collection has, in this results here, over 8,000 items, a little over 8,000, and they range in date of publication from 1970. So we have 3 from 1970 through 2020. And on the facets on the left, you can also see how they're organized by offices and programs. You can also see on the facets that you can look at it by subject, document type, and a number of other of these. So I'm gonna jump in through here. So we're going to narrow down our search from 2020. So we'll take a look at these 283 documents, and I'm actually going to narrow it further by taking a look at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center. So we can see that from the Alaska Fisheries Science Center, these can be affiliated authors or tech memos that come out of that office or that center. We have 28 results. So I'm going to actually narrow it down a little further, and we can see that we have 9 journal articles from 2020. And as I take a look at these results, I can see that these are coming from a number of different journals. So we have ecological applications, science of the total environment, very popular title for our researchers, frontiers in marine science, ICES Journal of Marine Science, progress in oceanography, global change biography. And then we run into another one. So this title here is actually not available at this point. And so there's a reason for that, but I want to show you that even though the public access for this is not available at this point, we'll show you that you can actually still access it through some of the metadata in here. So if I go and take a look at the article page, you can see again, there's a moratorium on it until January of 2021. In the details tab, I'm always going to find that the DOI will link out to the publisher's version. And so if I click on this, I can get my little pop-up that tells me that we're leaving a government website. And we see that this is actually an open access article. We could download the whole thing. We could read it online. So that's one way you might potentially access an article. You know, it depends on the publisher, and also just depends on the specific type of licensing, if it's an open access article, whether or not we have that 1-year moratorium. So you will see that every now and then, but I wanted to just point it out since it did come up in our search here. Let's take a look at this article on global change biology, just so we can see what the record page looks like, and then some of the functionality that the system has. All right. So I click on the record page and I can see we've got the title here. We have this record number 7 of 9. Don't let that confuse you. That's just, we had those 9 results. This is just that 7th record. So it's a little weird, but so don't let that confuse you. There's not 9 different documents or 9 different records associated with this. This is just that 7th one. We can see the publication date of 2020, global change biology, the issue and volume. And then you see that you can't actually view the article right away. You just need to click it. Anything over 5 megabytes is going to require that, but it's not going to download anything, so don't be scared to click that. And then it'll open it up in a nice system viewer. So we'll take a look at this article, and we can see that actually this article as well was an open access article and CC BY. So under this publishers, under Wiley's agreement and with the authors and everything, this is we are able to make this available right away. And this one was published or at least published on or received March 9th and accepted on the 13th of April. So so if you take a look across the top too, we're going to take a look at some of these tabs and show you what some of this information in here is. The details tab is actually going to be a nice overview of the metadata. So you have, I'll note that the description section, and we'll come back to this when we do some advanced searching, is always going to be for journal article, the abstract of the article. You have the authors, which are linked, and we'll show some more of that when we do a little bit more advanced stuff. And then we have the DOI. We have it's a document. Document type is the journal article. We narrowed down like that. We have places, subject, North Atlantic Ocean, and then we can actually see that this was part of 3 different collections. So it's part of Nymphs, OAR, and NOS. And that's just because there were 3 different authors, at least one author from each of those line offices. And then this part, wow, a little bit of lightning over here. Okay, that's right out my back door. Okay, so we have the main document checksum here. That's not anything you need to pay attention to really, but one thing that I did want to point out, because our repository is backed up in triplicate, and it's a bicoastal system. So all of this material is preserved. That is part of the requirements for the under PAR. So let's do something now. Let's just jump into the NOS collection, and we can take a look at a few more functionalities. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll look at a different type of document. We're going to jump into the professional papers. And in the future, you're going to see some changes to this category. Professional papers is going to get a little bit more granular. So our team is working to improve upon those in the future. So it might look a little bit different in the future. You know, the professional papers section might get a little smaller, and we'll see some more some other different document types come out of that. All right, take a look at this. This lightning is getting close. All right. So let's take a look at another year. Let's jump into, for example, 2015. That has 23 records. And let's see. Let's just scroll down and see what we have from NOS. So we've got a few manuals, a report on ghost fishing, another manual that looks like it's actually been superseded. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, here's another superseded manual. So let's actually take a look at that. And I do want to point out how the IR works when it comes to superseded documents, because we will find that not extremely often, but it's out there, and important for us to make sure that the public is aware of. So we see that this was published in 2015, and actually it has been replaced by another version. So we're going to take a look at that. So we've got the document here. Let's go into the details. We see that metadata again. This one is only in NOS. Let's take a look at the supporting file. So actually, if I open this, the supporting files will actually link. This is probably an iOS website. Yes, it is. And so we have their manuals here. So this is supporting information that is linked, but then also related documents. So we'll take a look at how a document is shown. So this one, let's take a look. So this is actually the document, original one that the 2015 document superseded itself. So this is the kind of second in the line of three manuals that we're taking a look at now. We have the 2013 one and then the 2019 one. So this is actually the current document here. So that is, the way that the IR is structured, and this function of linking documents is, in my opinion, one of the most useful in understanding the flow of information. So let's head back to our collections. I want to show you an example of not only how our team works with authors and line office to link other documents, but how we also link data related to publications, because this is going to come up in your research. So let's jump into the OAR collection here for a minute. And from what I know, the Okeanos, right? It collects a ton of data in its explorations. So we can actually start with an example of some of that. So I know that part of the Okeanos, their work is when they go out, they do produce dive summaries. So that's actually a document type here that we can take a look at. And if I click on dive summary here on the left, we can start to narrow by year. So if potentially the Okeanos went out in a specific year to a certain location, or if it was related to a certain program, specific subject, multi-beam mapping being a large one, but then also place a subject. And this is a very useful way to narrow results when you're looking for resources as well. So let's take a look at this American Samoa place a subject. We have 19 records here. And from that, the 2017 tells me that there was an expedition that year in the Pacific, and at least in that area, right? So I do want to point out we do have two records here where it shows the image not being available. If I jump into these, there's going to be an error. It's not going to have a document associated. This is a known bug. This is a known issue, and our team is working on resolving that. So if you see those, you can let us know, especially if you need one of those right away. We can get it for you. It's just for some reason there's a snag happening, and I don't know the technical issues with that, but I know that Jennifer Fagan-Fry and her team are working hard to resolve that with the CDC, so who we work with on this platform. So if you need one of those, please always touch base with us and we can get it for you. So let's take a look. We have dive summaries from multiple days, and we can just take a look at one of these. Let's just take a look at this one here from March 10th. This is the second dive. And in the viewer, you can see that, yeah, I mean, we have some photos. We know that there was data collected as part of this dive. And so let's take a look at what related documents. There's no related documents, but what about supporting files? Okay, so we see we have a link to, this could be the Ocean, yep, it's Ocean Explorer .noaa.gov, so I can see that's the Oceanus page, so it'll actually link you to that page. But here the really cool stuff is the data from that, and so we can actually open that up straight from the IR. And this is held at NCEI. And you can see that we have the data available. We have videos, imagery. So there's a lot of good information here. And then if you actually look at their documentation tab, what's nice is if a researcher were coming at it from the data perspective first, it is going to come full circle, and they're going to be able to find, the reports and the dive summaries and cruise catalogs and everything through this documentation tab too. So that's another, way we're working across NOAA to make sure that this information is easy to find, because we all know that NOAA has a lot of websites, and it's not always the easy to find information. So we try and make that easier for you. Let's see. One more thing I want to talk about before we move on is this series right here. So again, it's all of our series are linked. So the IR team has been integrating series linking, so the tech memo series, tech reports, other things like this dive summary can all be linked together. So if I actually click on that, I'm just going to get back right to these 19 publications. So pretty neat. And just to show another quick example of this, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to type tech memo in here because I know it'll pull one up right away for me. But I just want to show you another example just so you can see this. All right, so this first example here, it's on Steelhead, and it was produced by the Northwest Fisheries Science Center. It's a technical memo and it's from 2015. But if I go in here, I can see that the series is linked. If I click on that, we can see that we have this specific series linked, all the documents that at least we have digitized all the way back from 1991. So again, a really awesome way that documents and are linked through the metadata that's created by our team. All right, let's see. All right, so let's jump into searching here. Now that we've taken a look at some of the platforms and done a little browsing, I've kind of reviewed some of the facets that we can use to narrow things, and we all know now kind of like what to look for on a records page and how to evaluate, potential linked documents, supporting files, everything like that. So let's just head back to the home page. So let me take a look at my notes so I make sure I'm doing things in the right steps. Okay, so the first thing to know about the IR is that it has full text searching capabilities. So what this means is that when I search using just the basic functionality here, I'm telling the system that I want any record that includes my terms, and whether that be the terms are included in the metadata or the full text of the document. So it's actually searching the full text of all the documents. And while this is very helpful, you want to make sure that you're using it in the right way because it's going to be very difficult, not very efficient when you're getting too much stuff. So for example, if I do a search for green sturgeon, so we have over 1,100 results here, and that's quite a bit. I would even be surprised, if we had that many on green sturgeon itself. So what this is doing is actually doing a search for both green and sturgeon. So in terms of Boolean searching, it's, green doesn't need to be anywhere near sturgeon. Sturgeon doesn't need to be anywhere near green. It's just, it could be John Green, as the author, and he wrote about Atlantic sturgeon, or sturgeon was just mentioned one time in a citation, or so it's not very accurate, but just to give you an example of how that works. So even if we narrowed it down, to 2020, we have 55 results sorted by relevance here. But since we're looking for, actually green sturgeon, what we would want to do is we want to throw quotation marks around that. And that's just going to say we want green sturgeon, and we want it as a term just as it's typed. And this is the same type of search functionality you find in any database, any research database, Google. Those quotation marks are very helpful. So let's do that search, and there we go, 293. And so that's more like it. And it's much better for when we start weeding through the material. But we can take it a step further by using the advanced search. And while it might seem when we jump in here like there's a lot going on, it's actually pretty easy. And so you'll see first that you can actually narrow the search down by collection. And so for our example here, we'll just keep it open to all the collections. But you can also narrow it by title, author, conference name even, and let's say you had a DOI, you wanted to jump in. Normally I would just Google a DOI, but it does have the function to search across all of this different metadata, right? So as a researcher, I know when I'm looking for a journal article, I'm normally pinpointing terms in the abstract or the title to at least get very narrow searches. So for this search, that's what we'll do. And remember when we were taking a look at that original record, that the term description was the metadata field used for abstracts. So that's going to be important to remember, and something that I always point out to people. So this is the description, because not everything is a journal article and not everything has an abstract, that's why this was selected, but description here is going to be where you're going to want to type your keyword if you wanted to find that in abstract. So we're going to type in green sturgeon again. And then what we'll do is we've got the and or not. So we'll just keep the and in there, and we're going to say if it's in the abstract or the title. All right, we'll do the abstract or title. And then we'll do that search. And we'll see we have those 16 results there. For example, if you want to see the difference between that, if you wanted to make sure that green sturgeon was both in the abstract and the title, you do another search, and there we have 9 results. So some differentiation in the searching, but let's see. Now, if we want to focus specifically on the full text of the document without searching any of the associated metadata, this doesn't really come up very often, but I will give you an example of how that might work. So we're going to use the field document. So let's just get rid of this, and we're going to jump over, take a look. Document here again. So this is going to bypass any of the metadata that is included, and it's just going to look at the text of the document. So we can run that, and again, we have that 293 results, because most likely if it's in the text of the document, it's going to be, in that abstract or title. But we've got that 293. Again, that's not something that comes up very often, but just to let you know that if you're just looking at full text of documents, that document field is what you want to take a look at. All right. So let's take a look, at least in this search. Let's take a look at the most recent ones again. We have 34 from 2020, and again, I'll note how you can use authors now as a search. So we'll take a look at this first report. It looks like 2020. It's the observed and estimated bycatch of green sturgeon. It looks like from 2002 to 2017. And if we take a look at the details here, like I showed you before, all of these authors show up as a linked entity. So we could go ahead and, just like we did with going into the collections, take a look at one of these authors. So let's take a look at Kate Richardson. And just clicking on her name shows that she has 11 items over time that she has produced as part of NOAA or as a NOAA author. And that's just what we have in the IR. That's not to say that's everything that she has ever published, but that's what is in the IR at this point. And now let's say we really love Kate's work. She works in, green sturgeon. We just want to, make sure to export these citations so that we have them. We maybe not want to read them right now. So there's two ways to do that. And let's say you're in a record itself. If you want to export the citation, this little button right here, and then you're going to click the RIS format. It's the only one available right now, but really I always use RIS. It can format into any citation manager, such as EndNote or Mendeley. And if I click that, I'm just going to get a little download. When I open that into my citation manager, it's going to fill out all the metadata associated with this specific record. Let's head back. And again, let's say you just you love Kate Richardson's work, and you want to export potentially all of the documents. So there's a max of 200, but you could select all of the documents, or you could select just a few. And this little box is hidden. That's why I like to point it out. It's not very easy to see, and normally I'm used to seeing things on the left-hand side, but you can take that and then you can export those citations, and there you go. And when you open that up in your citation management software, you're going to have 3 separate records. So, all right. So we do have another session coming up, like we had mentioned before, so I want to be careful about time, but I do want to make sure and head back to the home page one last time. The IR team puts in a lot of hard work highlighting specific work in NOAA, and they collaborate with offices and programs. So this slider here on the home page is something the team is constantly updating. If you have a group of documents that your office have submitted, or they're looking to submit and think that there would be a nice group to highlight, please reach out to our team here, because we would be more than happy to work to highlight a tech memo series, or something that deal with the Weather Act. I think we actually have. Do we have a Weather Act one on there right now? Not right now. Yeah, so we're happy to work with you. also, if you scroll down on this page, you will see a couple of different groups, trending documents, and then recently added. So recently added doesn't mean recently published. We're, again, putting in a lot of material, older material, as our digitization project moves forward. But these might be some places you know, check out on the occasion, and that are constantly updated. All right, let's see. We didn't cover today anything dealing with submissions, and so that is a whole nother beast. And if there's anybody here today who has questions about submitting documents to the IAR or any of the requirements that are needed with 508 compliance, Section 508 compliance, please take a look at our submission FAQs. There is a submission form, so I would definitely take a look at the FAQs before doing any type of submission. We do help do manuscript remediation for 508, and we have a Section 508 guide here that links out to one of our library guides. And Jennifer Fagenfry has put this together, really full of good material. So I'm not going to dive into any submission things right now, but we do have pre-recorded sessions on different parts of that as well. This about NOAA Institutional Repository here, again, you can find the FAQs and their contact information in case you have any questions. There's also information on the content that you might find and any copyright questions. So again, this is going to cover, you know, what is available, and then let's see if the FAQs has an overview of the different types of documents. Yeah, so this is kind of what I talked about today in terms of what you're going to find in the institutional repository, the different kinds of publication series, and then again, kind of an overview of what's considered a NOAA authored, what's considered NOAA funded. So with that, I will wrap up today's talk. Again, email us with any questions. Very happy to have you all join us today, and look for our next discussion on NOAA publications. They're on different topics every month, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. As Trevor mentioned, next month we have another Publishing at NOAA talk. It will be on October 8th. The title is Pay No Attention to That Man Behind the Curtain, What Author Services Can Do for You. And that will be hosted by Jen Fagenfry, myself, and Sarah Davis. So please look for the registration link for that, which should be coming out in the next couple weeks. Thank you all and have a great day.